You ever have one of those moments, where you react, maybe say something sharp, or just go along with something you don't really agree with, and later you think, wait, is that really me?
Oh, absolutely. Like that quick flash of anger when you're stressed, or maybe feeling weirdly competitive over something small.
Exactly. It's that unsettling feeling, isn't it? That good people, people with good intentions, can somehow get nudged or sometimes shoved into acting in ways that feel off,
hmm
against their own nature almost.
And often without even realizing the forces pushing them.
Well, welcome, deep divers. Today we are jumping right into that. We're exploring the fascinating and sometimes pretty uncomfortable world of situational psychology.
Yeah, our mission today is to take this big concept, Philip Zimbardo's Lucifer Effect, which usually gets talked about with extreme stuff.
Right, like prisons or historical atrocities.
Exactly, but we want to bring it down to earth, bring it into your everyday life. We've got a stack of sources here, classic experiments, modern behavior science, relationship insights.
All to help us understand how situations, big and small, can kind of hijack our choices sometimes.
Yeah.
Make us vulnerable to acting in ways we wouldn't normally choose.
It's so interesting because we tend to think our moral compass is, fixed, rock solid.
Like a North Star, yeah.
But Zimbardo's work, and others will look at, they just scream that the environment, the situation can be incredibly powerful, maybe even the dominant force sometimes.
Mm,
So this deep dive isn't just about looking back at old experience, it's really about spotting those subtle, everyday situational forces. Could be stress, feeling isolated, maybe even just the dynamics in a relationship.
things that make you vulnerable to choices you might regret later on.
Exactly. Or just acting in ways that don't quite match who you want to be.
Okay, so the goal here is practical. We want to give some insights, some tools maybe to recognize these influences, and I like this phrase, protect your best self. And we're not necessarily talking about huge acts of evil here. It's more about those everyday moments where maybe good intentions wobble a bit, or we just fall short of our own standards because the situation kind of swept us along.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Totally. It's about the micro-Lucifer effects in our own lives.
The shadow of the situation, understanding the Lucifer effect.
All right, so we've floated this idea that situations are powerful, but to really feel the weight of it, we kind of have to start with the big one, don't we? Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment, the SPE.
Yeah, you really can't talk about situational power without going there. It's infamous for a reason.
So for anyone not familiar, let's just quickly paint the picture. Zimbardo and his team, they set up this mock prison, basically, in the basement of the Stanford Psychology building.
Right. Pretty basic setup, really. Cells, a common area.
And then they got these college students, screened them, made sure they were psychologically healthy, normal guys, no history of problems.
Crucial point. These weren't troubled individuals to begin with.
No. And they randomly assigned them roles. Half became guards, half became prisoners. The idea was just to see what happens when you put good people in a simulated prison environment. Study institutional psychology.
Simple goal,
Yeah.
right? But what actually happened,
Huh.
well, it went off the rails fast and in a deeply disturbing way.
Yeah.
And that experiment, as unsettling as it is, really connects to this bigger picture. Zimbardo showed, like crystal clear, how powerfully a situation can just stomp all over personal morality.
Right.
It demonstrated, maybe more starkly than anything before it, how quickly good people in a bad situation
Yeah.
could start doing genuinely bad things.
It wasn't necessarily about them being secretly bad.
No, it was the situation, the roles they were given, the uniforms, the power imbalance, the lack of oversight that was the engine driving the behavior. The system itself.
The details are just wild. You read the accounts like guard Ciros. He said he felt awkward at first, right? Didn't
Yeah.
know how to act.
Putting on the persona.
But then he put on those silver reflective sunglasses, the ones that hid his eyes.
Anonymity. Classic factor.
And he said he felt this safely authoritative confidence suddenly. He even talked about trying to turn his urge to laugh at the prisoner's humiliation into a sadistic smile. Like he was consciously trying to perform the role.
Wow. Looking for cues from the others, probably. What does a guard do here?
Exactly. That need to fit in to figure out the script in a weird situation. And the guards' demands, they just started escalating. Simple stuff at first, like counting numbers.
Yeah, the lineup counts?
Then memorizing prisoner ID numbers with push-ups for every mistake, and they got competitive about it. Guard Hellman taunting a prisoner, "I don't like the way you count. Do 10 more push-ups for me, will you? 5, 4, 8, 6. Just raw dominance.
And the prisoners?
Mostly, they complied. They were stripped of their identity, called by numbers, put in these degrading situations, and their compliance just seemed to fuel the guards' desire to push harder.
A vicious cycle.
Uh,
Power feeding power.
right. Guard Vandy, this bigger guy, talked about pacing methodically and actually starting to like the feeling of dominance. Zimbardo noted the guards' main job became creating an environment where prisoners lost their old identities. It wasn't just playing a role anymore, it was total immersion.
It really consumed them. And this ties into what Milgram found earlier with his obedience studies, right? Zimbardo referenced that.
Yeah, the electric shock experiments.
Milgram talked about this human nature dial, how obedience could be cranked way up or down just by tweaking the situation. A flick of the situational switch, he called it.
So people administering shocks just because a guy in a lab coat told them to.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It suggests our behavior isn't fixed. It's incredibly responsive to context, to authority, to the environment's cues.
Oh.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? How easily that dial can be turned for any of us.
Definitely. So, okay, that's the extreme example. But what's the takeaway for us, living our normal lives? We're not in a mock prison basement.
Right. But Zimbardo's work, and others, they really hammer home how powerful systems and environments are, even the mundane ones.
So it's not just prisons. It could be, like office politics, family dynamics?
Exactly. Or the pressure cooker of a stressful job,
Yeah.
or even just feeling isolated. These are our everyday situations, and they have power.
Okay.
It connects to what B.F. Skinner argued in Beyond Freedom and Dignity. He basically said our behavior is driven by environmental conditions, not some independent inner self.
So the environment controls us. That sounds a bit bleak.
Well, yes and no. Skinner said we are controlled by our environment, but then he adds this crucial bit. It's an environment largely of his own making.
Ah, okay. So we have some influence.
A lot of influence,
Yeah.
potentially. It highlights both our vulnerability and our potential agency. We can shape the forces that shape us.
And we see these situational effects play out in all sorts of ways, right? Like
Mhm.
Zimbardo talked about psychic numbing or doubling.
Yeah, that's a heavy one. Like the doctors in Nazi Germany he mentioned, highly educated people involved in horrific acts.
How did they even cope?
They compartmentalized, created two selves almost. The caring doctor here, the compliant functionary there, a way to avoid the crushing reality of what they were doing. Self-deception as a survival mechanism in an evil system.
Wow. And on a less extreme level, Skinner mentioned things like vandalism or riots.
Misdirected aggression, yeah. When people feel powerless or treated badly, sometimes they lash out at easier targets because they can't confront the real source.
Yeah.
It's a displacement kind of thing.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there are relationships. You mentioned the anxious avoidant trap earlier.
Right, from the book Attached. That's a perfect example of a personal situation. One partner needs closeness, reassurance, feels anxious without it. The other feels smothered by too much intimacy, needs space, avoids conflict.
So they have incongruent intimacy needs, as the book calls it.
Exactly. And it leads to chronic frustration, conflict, lower satisfaction. The example of Paul and Jackie resorting to attacks instead of comfort. It's a painful cycle.
Because their fundamental needs clash, creating this ongoing, difficult dynamic.
And we often forget that people just have different capacities for intimacy. When those styles collide, the relationship itself becomes a situation that can bring out insecure, unhappy behaviors. The worst versions of ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it really pushes us to ask, if our environment shapes us so much, how much freedom do we actually have, and how do we use it wisely? Skinner's idea that the evolution of a culture is a gigantic exercise in self-control is kind of hopeful, isn't it?
Self-control on a massive scale.
It implies we can consciously shape things, shape the environments that shape us. That's where our power lies.
The inner landscape, identity, habits, and self-authorship.
Okay, that's a great place to pivot. Because if we can shape our environment, then protecting our best self also has to involve looking inward, right? And our identity, our habits, how we see ourselves.
Absolutely. Our sources kept coming back to the power of identity. It's not just what you do, it's who you believe you are when you're doing it.
How so?
Well, think about that line from 5 Psychological Truths. If you identify as a learner, setbacks become lessons. If you identify as a failure, the same setback becomes proof.
Ah, okay. So your identity shapes how you interpret things.
And how you act. The argument is that real lasting change doesn't come just from setting goals. It needs an identity level update. You have to shift the story you tell yourself about who you are.
You know, that actually connects back to the SBE in a dark way. The guards acted like guards because that became their temporary identity.
Right. And the prisoners internalized their numbers. Prisoner 416 finding inner peace in solitary by embracing his number.
Yeah, he said 416 had found his own response, like the number was him now. Crazy.
It's a stark example of identity shift under pressure, but it happens in subtler ways, too. Think about Carol Dweck's mindset research.
The fixed versus growth mindset stuff.
Exactly. She found teachers who focused on comparing kids fostered a fixed mindset. Those kids started identifying as smart or not smart, and then they'd avoid challenges to protect that label.
So they wouldn't risk looking dumb. Their identity became about proving ability, not growing it.
Precisely. It shapes their choices, their willingness to learn. It's a self-fulfilling loop. If you see yourself as a certain kind of person, you act in ways that reinforce it.
So our internal narrative is a situation in itself, almost.
You got it. A very powerful one.
Okay, let's make this practical then. Here's a field drill idea for everyone listening. Think about something you want to improve, a desired outcome.
Okay.
Now, write an "I'm the kind of person who" statement for it. Like, I'm the kind of person who stays calm under pressure. Or, I'm the kind of person who finishes what they start.
Gotcha. Define the identity.
Then, and this is key, attach that statement to one tiny daily action that proves it. Just one small thing. Do that action every day. It's about building the identity through small, consistent wins.
Nice. Actively shaping the self-story.
Right. Now, related to identity, but maybe even deeper, habits. It's kind of mind-blowing how much of our day runs on autopilot, isn't it?
Oh, totally. We think we're consciously deciding everything, but we're mostly running scripts.
James Clear, in Atomic Habits, calls habits the atoms of our lives. Small routines, but they make up everything.
And 5 psychological truths hits hard with. You do not rise to the level of your intentions, you fall to the level of your conditioning.
Oof. So good intentions aren't enough.
Not even close. Some estimates say up to 90% of what we do daily is automatic, driven by habit loops, triggered by cues in our environment. If you want to protect your best self, you have to get a handle on these underlying systems.
So it's about designing the system, not just relying on willpower.
Exactly. And Atomic Habits gives us some really clear ways to do that. First law, make obvious. Start by just noticing your habits. Fill out a habits scorecard list, what you do without judgment, then use implementation intentions. I will do this habit at this time in this place. Super specific.
Like, I will meditate for 5 minutes at 7 a.m. on the living room couch.
Perfect. Or habit stacking. After I do my current habit, I will do my new habit. Like after I pour my morning coffee, I will take my vitamins. Link it to something you already do.
Okay. And design your environment.
Crucial. Make cues for good habits visible. Want to drink more water? Keep a water bottle on your desk. Want to floss? Put the floss right next to your toothbrush. Make bad habit cues invisible.
Gotcha. Out of sight, out of mind.
What's the second law?
Make it attractive. Pair something you want to do with something you need to do. That's temptation bundling.
Like only listen to your favorite podcast while you're exercising.
Exactly. Or join a group where the habit you want is the norm. Want to run? Join a running club. The social aspect makes it way more attractive.
Okay, this really brings us back to Skinner, doesn't it? Our environment controls us, but it's largely of our own making.
Precisely. We can be the architects. It forces the question, are we just passively drifting in our environment, or are we actively shaping our own situations? We need to be architects. Love that. Okay, another field drill based on this. From 5 psychological truths, pick one keystone habit.
Like sleep, exercise, planning, something with ripple effects.
Yeah. Then, step 1, remove friction. Make it easy. Lay out your clothes, prep your lunch, clear your desk, whatever makes it smoother.
Induce the activation energy.
Step 2, add a clear cue, same time, same place, every day if possible. Make it automatic.
Build the trigger.
Step 3, track it. Just track your consistency for 21 days. See what happens when you intentionally shape that one little piece of your environment.
Small changes, big impact over time. That's the idea.
The social arena relationships as situational forces.
All right, we've looked inside identity, habits. Now let's zoom back out to the social world. Our interactions with others. Man, these are powerful situations, maybe the most powerful we face day to day.
No kidding. They can bring out our absolute best or, well, the opposite. One source calls relationships mirrors.
Mirrors, how so?
They reflect us back to ourselves. Our patterns, our needs, often our unhealed stuff, insecurities, wounds, they tend to show up in relationships as defensiveness or maybe contempt or people-pleasing.
Ouch, okay.
So, healthy relationships, the sources argue, require real ownership. Being able to say, okay, this is my pattern here, this is my boundary, and here's how I'll repair things when I mess up. That self-awareness is key to stop relationships becoming negative situations.
Which brings us back to that anxious avoidant trap from Attached. That seems like a prime example of a tough relational situation.
It really is. You've got one person needing closeness, maybe feeling anxious if they don't get constant reassurance. That's the anxious style.
Right.
And the other person feels kind of suffocated by too much intimacy, needs space, pulls away, avoids deep emotional talks. That's the avoidance style.
Incongruent intimacy needs.
It sounds like a recipe for frustration.
It often is. Leads to lower satisfaction, constant push-pull. And here's the tricky part. Some popular dating advice actually feeds this trap.
How? Like play hard to get. Exactly. Act aloof. Don't seem too needy. Attached argues this might attract people, but specifically avoidant people, because you're suppressing your real needs.
So by pretending you don't need closeness, you attract someone who can't give it.
Pretty much. You let them set the terms, come and go. It feels like you're in control, but you end up in this unsatisfying dynamic. It's easy to forget people just have different wiring for intimacy when those wires cross.
It creates this ongoing situation that brings out the worst insecurity, frustration, unhappiness, like a mini Lucifer effect in your love life.
That's a great way to put it. It's a relational setup that almost guarantees distress if you don't recognize the pattern. Which raises the question, how do we get good at spotting when a relationship is becoming a situation that compromises our authentic self instead of supporting it?
That's tough. And is it all just hardwired? Like, are we stuck with our attachment style?
Well, genetics plays a role, sure. But the good news is secure attachment, feeling safe, connected, able to communicate openly, that's largely a learned skill. Effective communication is huge.
Okay, so we can work on it. Let's do a field drill for that. Next time you're in a conflict, try this. Swap you statements for I statements.
Classic communication advice, but powerful.
Instead of, you always interrupt me, try, I notice when I get interrupted, I feel frustrated and I need to finish my thought. See the difference.
Yeah, less blame, more focus on your experience and needs.
Then make a clear request with a time frame. And this is important. Ask them to tell you what they heard you say, just to make sure you're on the same page. It shifts the whole dynamic from fight to collaboration.
Nice. Simple, but not easy to do in the heat of the moment. Takes practice.
Definitely. Okay, let's widen the lens again. Beyond one-on-one relationships to groups, Jordan Peterson, Jonathan Haidt, they talk a lot about how groups shape us, right?
Hugely. Haidt brings up Darwin's idea of group selection. Basically, groups that are really cohesive, really cooperative, they tend to outperform groups of purely selfish individuals.
Survival of the fittest group.
Kind of. Haidt calls this human tendency hivishness. Under certain conditions like facing a common enemy, or doing intense rituals, we can sort of shut down our petty selves and become like cells in a larger body.
Like fans at a football game or soldiers in a unit.
Exactly. It enables incredible altruism, heroism within the group.
Ah, but there's a but, isn't there?
Always. Haidt points out the dark side. This intense group focus can blind us to other moral concerns. It can fuel not just heroism, but also war, even genocide. The U.S. versus them mentality gets amplified.
Zimbardo talked about Abu Ghraib in this context, didn't he? How the whole system, leadership, interrogators, intelligence, created a situation where horrific abuse happened.
Yes, it wasn't just one bad apple. It was the whole barrel, the system itself that sanctioned and enabled it. Good people, regular soldiers, became perpetrators within that toxic environment. The group context was overwhelming.
So the hivishness, the group cohesion, had a terrible outcome.
It can, which leads to a critical question. How do we get the benefits of belonging, that innate drive we have, without falling prey to the group's potential dark side? How do we stay part of the U.S. without demonizing them?
That's the tightrope. Adler, the psychologist, talked about groups striving for superiority by putting others down, right?
Yeah, enhancing their own group's importance by condemning others. It solidifies the in-group identity. We have to be so vigilant about that tendency in ourselves and our groups.
And then there's Bander's diffusion of responsibility. That sounds relevant here.
Absolutely. It's the idea that when you're acting as part of a group, you feel less personally responsible for the outcome.
Like everyone else was doing it, or I was just following orders.
Exactly. Responsibility gets spread so thin that no single person feels the full weight of it. This makes it way easier for people to act more harshly or less ethically than they would on their own.
That connects right back to the guards in the SBE and Abu Ghraib. Part of a system, less individual guilt.
Precisely. The group provides cover, psychologically speaking. A very dangerous situational force.
The mind's own deception, dissonance, and bias.
Okay, so we got external situations, social pressures.
Yeah.
But what about what happens inside our own heads? How our minds can kind of trick us or protect us in weird ways. Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance feels huge here.
Oh, it's fundamental. Cognitive dissonance is basically that uncomfortable feeling we get when we hold two conflicting beliefs or when our actions clash with our beliefs.
Like believing you're an honest person, but then telling a white lie.
Exactly. Or believing smoking is bad for you but doing it anyway. That inconsistency creates this internal static, this psychological discomfort.
And we don't like feeling uncomfortable.
We hate it. So our minds automatically try to reduce that dissonance, to restore consistency. We're highly motivated to get rid of that nagging feeling.
How do we do that? What are the tricks our minds play?
Well, one classic way is to change one of the conflicting elements. If you told that white lie, you might downplay its importance. Oh, it wasn't a big deal, it didn't hurt anyone.
Rationalizing it away.
Or you might change your belief about the action, maybe decide that sometimes lying is actually okay or even necessary. Another way is to seek out information that supports your choice and ignore info that contradicts it.
Confirmation bias, basically. Finding people who agree with you.
Yes. Seeking social support makes your position feel stronger, adds consonant cognitive elements, as Festinger called them. And then there's the forced compliance thing. If a situation pressures you into doing something against your beliefs.
Like in the Milgram or Stanford experiments.
Right. You might actually change your private opinion to match your outward behavior, just to reduce that awful internal conflict. Or you might magnify how big the reward was or how severe the punishment would have been to justify why you did it.
Wow. Our minds work hard to keep things feeling consistent, even if it means bending reality a bit.
They really do. Which brings up a tough question. How do we get better at noticing our own dissonance reduction? Especially when it might be covering up something uncomfortable about how we acted in a specific situation. Are we just fooling ourselves?
That connects to what Jordan Peterson talks about, doesn't it? That paradox of needing group identity for protection, but that very protection leading to hatred of the other.
Exactly. Protecting our psychological territory, our sense of consistency and belonging is such a powerful drive that will rationalize almost anything to maintain it, often using these dissonance tricks. It's a slippery slope.
And it's not just dissonance. Our minds have other built-in glitches, right? Biases that distort how we see things.
Oh, for sure. Our brains use mental shortcuts all the time, and sometimes they lead us astray, like selection bias, mentioned in 5 Psychological Truths.
What's that one?
It's where you basically settle on a story or explanation first, and then you only see evidence that fits it. You stop looking for anything that might challenge your initial conclusion.
So you keep making the same mistakes because you're stuck in your default story.
Pretty much. The signs are often feeling certain really quickly, getting defensive if questioned, and only remembering facts that support your case. Your brain filters reality to match the script.
That sounds like what Goldman described with kids having perceptual biases toward hostility in his emotional intelligence work.
Exactly. If a child, maybe due to past experiences, expects hostility, they'll interpret even neutral actions as threatening. That internal bias, that situation inside their head, then directly triggers aggressive behavior. It creates the very reality they fear.
Their internal filter shapes their external world.
Right. And this makes our faculty of judgment so incredibly important. Oliver Sacks, writing about his neurological patients in The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, argued judgment is maybe our most vital faculty.
More important than memory or reason.
He suggested so. Because judgment is about seeing things as they are, understanding relationships, perceiving the whole context accurately. Without it, as he saw in some patients, you're completely lost, unable to navigate reality, even if other cognitive functions are intact. It's our reality checker.
Okay, so our judgment can be clouded by these biases. How do we fight back? Any practical strategies?
5 Psychological Truths offer some good ones. When you notice those signs, quick certainty, defensiveness, deliberately pause. Ask yourself, okay, if I'm wrong about this, what might I be missing?
Challenge your own assumptions.
And actively seek out disagreement. Who thinks differently and why? Listen to the counter-argument seriously. Another tool is pre-commitment. Decide your criteria before you evaluate options so you're not swayed by bias later.
Green primordiums, what's that?
Before making a big decision, imagine it's 6 months later and it totally failed. Brainstorm all the reasons why it might have failed. Then build safeguards against those potential failure points now.
Anticipate the problems. Smart. It's about actively working against those mental shortcuts.
Exactly. Building in checks and balances for your own thinking.
Mastering your microenvironment, cultivating resilience, and protecting your best self.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground external situations, social dynamics, internal biases. It can feel a bit overwhelming, like we're just puppets on strings.
It can seem that way. But the really hopeful message, the empowering part, is that we are not just passive victims.
We have agency.
We absolutely do. Remember Skinner's point. Our environment is largely of our own making. That's huge. It means we have this incredible capacity for self-control, for intentional creation.
So the goal isn't to escape influence, but to consciously shape it.
Precisely. To curate the conditions that help our best selves show up more often. Make the positive behaviors easier, the negative ones harder.
Which brings us right back to atomic habits. Design your environment. Make good habit cues obvious and visible. Make bad habit cues invisible and unattractive.
Engineer your reality.
Yeah.
It's active, conscious control over your personal situations. Instead of letting the environment dictate, you dictate the environment as much as possible.
And this drive for control, for freedom, it seems pretty fundamental, doesn't it?
It really does. Even Pavlov noticed it in dogs. He called it the freedom reflex, that struggle against restraint, just instinctively.
Yeah.
For us humans, that impulse, combined with our ability to consciously design things, that's a powerful recipe for autonomy.
So it's not about avoiding tough situations altogether.
No, that's impossible and probably not even desirable. It's about understanding how they affect us and building the capacity to respond well. Like The Body Keeps the Score talks about trauma-locking people in the past.
Reliving old patterns, yeah.
But through self-awareness, by learning to befriend those internal sensations instead of fighting them, people can start to see choices again. Multiple paths open up. They regain agency.
Which points to the idea that managing our inner world is just as important as managing the outer one, maybe more so.
Absolutely. You need that internal resilience, that inner compass.
How do we cultivate that?
Well, the neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux's work is key here. He showed that the main way we consciously access our emotional brain, where all those deep patterns and triggers live, is through self-awareness. Specifically, activating a part of the brain called the medial prefrontal cortex.
And how do we activate that?
Through introspection, literally looking inside, paying attention to the physical sensations in your body, what's happening in your gut, your chest, your throat. That's the direct line to your emotional state.
So tuning into your body helps you manage your emotions.
It's the doorway. One person in a study put it beautifully. I can express my feelings more because I can recognize them more. I feel them in my body, recognize them, and address them.
That sounds incredibly empowering, to not just be swept away by feelings.
Exactly. It allows you to break free from those reactive loops.
Yeah.
To pause, recognize, and then choose your response. To decide and choose my life, as that person said. That's real freedom.
It reminds me of Erik Erikson's idea about healthy development, that kids, if supported, follow these inner laws. Like, there's an innate drive towards self-regulation.
Yes. If the environment, internal and external, is supportive, we have this capacity. And Martin Seligman's work on learned optimism and resilience training backs this up too. We can learn internal skills to navigate adversity, build that inner fortitude.
So ultimately, navigating all these situational forces, protecting our best selves,
Right.
It comes down to finding our own design, doesn't it?
Our own structure, our pattern for living. I think of that patient, Rebecca, from Oliver Sacks. She said, I'm like a sort of living carpet. I need a pattern, a design. I come apart, I unravel, unless there's a design.
Wow, that's such a powerful image. We need that coherence.
We really do. Whether we find it through creative work, like art or music, remember Sacks's patient Martin coming alive with Bach?
Yeah.
Or through a sense of purpose beyond ourselves, like Angela Duckworth found in gritty people wanting to connect with and help others. Finding and actively cultivating that personal design seems essential for wholeness, for health, for staying grounded amidst all the chaos. Which leaves us with a final, really important question for everyone listening. What patterns, what designs are you consciously, intentionally weaving into your life right now to make sure your best self has the space and support it needs to truly flourish, no matter the situation? Outro.
Wow. Okay, we have definitely gone deep today. We've looked at the Lucifer effect, not just as some extreme phenomenon, but as something that plays out in our everyday lives through social roles, relationship dynamics, even our own thinking patterns.
Yeah, we saw how powerful situations can be, how understanding things like cognitive dissonance helps us see why we rationalize our choices, and how designing our environment can be a game changer for building better habits.
And that thread of self-awareness, tuning into our inner world through interoception, seems absolutely critical for navigating triggers and relationships more effectively.
It really does. It's about moving from reaction to response.
So as you head back into your week, here's something to chew on. Where in your life might you be, maybe unintentionally, creating a situation, a habit you ignore, a dynamic you tolerate, a bias you haven't questioned, that's subtly pulling you away from the person you want to be?
And more importantly, what one small intentional tweak, what little piece of design can you add today to help protect that best self and really allow yourself to thrive?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.